Picture this, you're at the absolute peak of your career. You've just starred in a blockbuster martial arts film alongside the biggest action star in the world, Jackie Chan. Movie producers are calling, your face is on magazine covers, everything you've worked for is finally happening, and then you walk away from it all. Not because of scandal, not because of injury or failure, but by choice. This is the story of Keith Vitali, the karate champion who turned his back on Hollywood stardom when most people would have killed for his opportunities. But here's the thing. Nobody talks about. His reasons for walking away might be even more impressive than the fame he left behind. Keith Vitali's story starts in the most unlikely place imaginable for a future martial arts champion. Born on December 24th, 1951, he began first grade at age 5 in Rome, Italy. After his family returned to America, Keith entered third grade at 7 years old in Columbia, South Carolina. Here's where things got tough. Being younger than everyone else in his grade level meant Keith was always the smallest kid in the room. He had few friends and struggled to fit in with classmates who were bigger, older, and more developed. For a lot of kids, this would have crushed their spirit. For Keith, it created a hunger that would define his entire life. Unable to connect with his peers, he found solace in the simplest of activities, running, just putting one foot in front of the other, feeling his body move, pushing through the pain. Running didn't care if you were small or young or didn't have friends, it just cared if you had heart. And Keith had plenty of that. That passion for running carried him through high school and earned him a track scholarship to a college in Charleston, South Carolina. For most people, that would have been the dream. A free college education doing something you love. But fate had other plans. During the summer of 1971, Keith was visiting the University of South Carolina when a friend took him to meet a karate instructor named John Roper. Keith walked into that dojo and watched a taekwondo class. Something clicked, something shifted inside him that he couldn't explain. This wasn't just interesting, this was everything. Right there, watching those students kick and punch and move with controlled power, Keith fell completely in love with martial arts, and when you're that certain about something, you don't hesitate. That same day, Keith went home and called his track coach. He was dropping his scholarship. He was transferring to the University of South Carolina. His coach probably thought he'd lost his mind. Who throws away a college scholarship on a whim? But Keith knew. This wasn't a whim. This was his calling. What happened next is the kind of achievement that sounds impossible when you hear it. Keith started his martial arts training at USC in 1971, and by 1973, just 2 years later, he earned his first degree black belt. For context, most people take 4 to 6 years to reach that level. But Keith had something special. Remember all those years of running? All that cardiovascular endurance and footwork? It became his secret weapon. After graduation, Keith moved to Atlanta and started training under the legendary Joe Corley at his American Karate Studios. Under Joe's guidance, Keith didn't just compete, he dominated. His fighting style was unlike anything the tournament circuit had seen. His footwork, developed through years of track and distance running, became what martial arts magazines called a science few other competitors have even come close to mastering. His signature moves, the devastating sidekick and lightning-fast back fist, became feared throughout the karate world. The accolades started piling up so fast it became ridiculous. From 1978 to 1980, Keith was the #1 rated US national tournament champion for 3 consecutive years. Not 1 year, not 2. 3 straight years at the absolute top. He won the middleweight World Karate Semi-Contact Championship at the Oakland Coliseum. He was also rated the #5 best fighter in the world in full contact karate. In 1981, he was inducted into the prestigious Black Belt Hall of Fame as Fighter of the Year. Black Belt Magazine, the Bible of martial arts, named him one of the 10 best fighters of all time, not of his era, of all time. Keith appeared on more than 13 national martial arts magazine covers. When people thought about karate in the late 70s and early 80s, they thought about Keith Vitali. He wasn't just a champion, he was the face of the sport. But here's where Keith's story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. A producer from Canon Films was flipping through Karate Illustrated magazine and Kick magazine and kept seeing the same face on the covers, Keith Vitali. This guy looked like a movie star and could actually fight. Canon was producing a martial arts film called Revenge of the Ninja, starring Sho Kosugi, and they needed someone authentic to play the villain. They signed Keith on the spot. Filmed in Salt Lake City, Utah, Revenge of the Ninja wasn't just another low-budget martial arts flick. It became a genuine blockbuster. MGM Studios picked it up for worldwide distribution and gave it a major theatrical release in the United States, one of the first martial arts films ever to receive that treatment. The movie helped ignite the ninja craze that swept America in the 1980s, and it's now considered a classic of the genre. Keith wasn't just playing a fighter, he was bringing real championship-level skills to the screen, and audiences could tell the difference. Then came the opportunity of a lifetime. In 1984, Keith was cast in Wheels on Meals, a Hong Kong action comedy directed by Sammo Hung and starring Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yuen Biao, and kickboxing legend Benny Urquidez. This wasn't some B-movie production, this was one of Jackie Chan's biggest films, shot on location in Barcelona, Spain, with a budget and production values that marked a major step up in Jackie's career. For Keith, it was a chance to work with the absolute best in the business, but it was also terrifying. These guys had been training together since childhood at the Peking Opera School. They knew each other's movements instinctively, and here was Keith, an American karate champion, trying to keep up with living legends. The stories from that set are absolutely wild. During one fight scene, after multiple takes, Keith accidentally kicked Jackie Chan in the throat. Jackie went down, and Keith's instinct kicked in. He broke character immediately, rushing over to make sure Jackie was okay. Seems like the right thing to do, right? Wrong. The entire film crew started yelling at Keith. In Hong Kong action cinema, you don't break character no matter what happens. You wait for the director to call cut, even if someone is seriously hurt. Keith learned his lesson, but it was about to be tested again. Later in the shoot, Keith accidentally kicked director Sammo Hung right in the head during another fight scene. This time, Keith stayed in character. He stood there, watching Sammo, waiting for him to call cut. Keith said it felt like an eternity, just standing there, knowing he might have just seriously injured the director. When Sammo finally called cut, Keith rushed over to apologize. Sammo just laughed it off, but he got his revenge. Near the end of the movie, Sammo surprised Keith by telling him that his character was going to get knocked out by a vase full of water. Keith thought it would be a prop, a breakaway vase filled with just a little water for effect. Nope. Sammo had the prop department fill a real ceramic vase with water and instructed them to actually hit Keith with it. When that vase connected, Keith was knocked in and out of consciousness for real. Through the daze and the pain, he managed to crack a smile because the whole crew was laughing. Keith later joked that this was Sammo's revenge for getting kicked in the head. But here's what made it worth it. Keith's ending fight scene against Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao is now considered one of the best martial arts fight scenes in cinema history. Sammo also taught Keith invaluable lessons about acting, specifically how to use facial expressions to bring a character to life. For Keith, Wheels on Meals was the crowning achievement of his film career. The momentum kept building. Keith went on to star in No Retreat, No Surrender 3 Blood Brothers alongside Loren Avedon, filmed in Tampa, Florida. He starred in American Kickboxer, which was filming in Johannesburg, South Africa, the exact same day Nelson Mandela was released from prison. The city was swarming with journalists from around the world, and Keith was right there in the middle of this historic moment. He starred as the villain in Super Fights, where he also worked as associate producer. He co-produced Blood Moon, starring Gary Daniels, filmed at Screen Gym Studios in North Carolina. Keith even appeared in 2 episodes of the TV show Nash Bridges, where he had a featured fight scene with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Every role was teaching him more about the business side of filmmaking. His friend and collaborator, Keith Strandberg, took him under his wing, showing him how film production worked, how to coordinate fights, how to navigate the international film markets. Keith's career trajectory was pointing straight up. More opportunities were coming, bigger roles, more money, more fame. And that's when Keith made a decision that shocked everyone who knew him. Instead of chasing bigger Hollywood roles, instead of leveraging his connections with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung for more international productions, Keith shifted his focus in a completely unexpected direction. He started a video production company called KV Video Productions. His first project, a child safety video called Self-Defense for Kids. Not a martial arts instructional video for adults looking to learn tournament techniques. Not a behind-the-scenes look at Hollywood fight choreography. A video teaching children how to protect themselves. The video became a massive hit, but not in the way Hollywood measures success. It made national headlines across the United States with features in USA Today, the Gannett newspaper chain, the Atlanta Journal, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the New York Post. This wasn't entertainment news, this was real news. Parents and educators were taking notice. The success of the video led to something even bigger. Keith was invited to appear on the Oprah Winfrey Show as a guest expert on children's safety. Think about that for a second. He could have been on talk shows promoting his latest action movie. Instead, he was on Oprah talking about how to keep kids safe from predators and bullies. Keith didn't stop there. He wrote a comprehensive book on bullying called Bully Proof Your Child, published by Skyhorse Publishers. The book covered all elements of bullying and was designed as a teaching aid for parents who wanted to help their children develop self-defense skills and strategies. He also co-authored a children's book with his grandson called Victor Stops the School Bully, bringing a 10-year-old's perspective to the subject to make it more relatable for young readers. This wasn't a side project or a publicity stunt. This became Keith's primary focus. He was using his martial arts expertise, his platform, and his credibility not to entertain audiences but to protect children. He continued teaching at the action film camp run by Keith Strandberg and Michael DePasquale Jr., passing his knowledge on to the next generation of stunt performers and martial artists. He wrote 4 instructional karate books, including Beginning Karate, which sold over 30,000 copies and is still used as a textbook at the University of South Carolina. His books, Karate Kicking, Winning Karate Techniques, and Tournament Fighting, became essential reading for serious martial artists. Keith also wrote a screenplay called Boone about the life of Daniel Boone, showing he was still pursuing creative projects just on his own terms, without the pressure of Hollywood's demands. In 2023, Keith launched the Sidekicks podcast, where he interviews prominent martial arts figures, action stars, and industry insiders about the history and behind-the-scenes aspects of martial arts cinema. His first guest was his lifelong friend Micah Genova, a legendary martial arts instructor and one of the great American tournament fighters. During that interview, Mike said something that really captures what Keith meant to the martial arts world. When you retired, the bottom fell out. It really did. You were a larger-than-life personality in the ring. You were a walking champion. I saw other people win tournaments, but they didn't sign autographs. Nobody wanted their pictures taken with them. They didn't carry themselves the way you did. You were the face of martial arts tournaments from the early 70s all the way through the mid-80s. Mike also pointed out that Keith fought in Madison Square Garden, the same venue where Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali fought. Other martial artists weren't getting those kinds of opportunities. Keith was special. So why did he walk away? Why would someone with all that talent, all those connections, and all that momentum choose to step back from Hollywood right when the door was wide open? Here's the thing most people don't understand about Keith Vitali. He never walked away. He just redefined what success meant to him. In Hollywood, success is measured in box office numbers, franchise deals, and how many people recognize your face. Keith measured success differently. When he created that Self-Defense for Kids video and saw it featured in newspapers across the country, when parents wrote to him saying his book helped their child stand up to a bully, when he appeared on Oprah and could potentially reach millions of families with life-saving information, that mattered more than seeing his name on a movie poster. Keith had already proven everything he needed to prove. He was one of the 10 best fighters of all time, according to Black Belt magazine. He'd won the U.S. National Championship 3 years in a row. He'd been inducted into the Hall of Fame. He'd shared the screen with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. He'd fought in Madison Square Garden. He'd starred in films distributed by major studios. What was left to achieve in terms of personal glory? More trophies, more magazine covers. Keith realized that his skills, his knowledge, and his platform could do something far more valuable than entertain people for 90 minutes. They could save lives. They could give children the confidence and tools to defend themselves. They could empower parents to protect their kids. There's something powerful about walking away from the spotlight when everyone expects you to chase it. In a world obsessed with fame and recognition, Keith chose purpose over popularity. He chose impact over applause. Think about the ripple effect of his decision. Every child who learned self-defense from his video, every parent who read his book and taught their kids how to handle bullies, every family that became more aware of the dangers facing children, that's Keith's real legacy. Not the films, not the championships, the lives he touched by using his martial arts knowledge to protect the most vulnerable members of society. That takes a different kind of courage than stepping into a fighting ring or in front of a movie camera. It takes the courage to say no to what everyone else thinks you should want. Keith is still active in the martial arts community, living in Atlanta, still teaching, still sharing his knowledge. His Sidekicks podcast continues to feature interviews with martial arts legends, preserving the history and stories of the genre he loves. He occasionally appears in cameo roles, like his upcoming part in Cynthia Rothrock's Western film Black Creek, but only when it fits his schedule and interests. He's not chasing roles, he's not desperate for the spotlight, he's living life on his own terms, guided by his own values. The story of Keith Vitali is ultimately a story about knowing yourself well enough to recognize when you found something more important than the path everyone expects you to take. Most people spend their entire lives trying to figure out what they're meant to do. Keith figured it out twice. First, when he walked into that karate dojo in 1971 and knew instantly that martial arts was his calling, and again when he realized that his calling wasn't to be famous, but to be useful. His friend Mike Genova said that when Keith retired from competition, the bottom fell out of tournament fighting. People missed him. They wanted more of what he brought to the sport, but Keith had already moved on to something bigger. Here's what makes Keith's decision so remarkable. He didn't walk away because he failed. He didn't walk away because opportunities dried up. He didn't walk away because he got injured or couldn't compete anymore. He walked away because he found a fight that mattered more, not in a ring, not on a movie screen, but in the real world, where children needed someone with his skills and knowledge to stand up for them. The karate champion who walked away from fame discovered that the greatest victory isn't defeating an opponent or topping the box office. It's using whatever gifts you have to make the world a little bit safer for those who can't defend themselves. In the end, Keith Vitali didn't abandon his dream. He evolved it. He took everything martial arts taught him: discipline, respect, protection of the weak, standing up for what's right, and applied it in the most meaningful way possible. While other action stars were chasing bigger paychecks and more famous co-stars, Keith was teaching children how to escape from a stranger's grasp. While others were fighting for screen time, Keith was fighting to protect kids from bullies and predators. That's not walking away from greatness. That's walking toward it. And maybe that's the lesson Keith Vitali's story teaches us. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what everyone else wants for you and toward what you know really matters. Keith Vitali will always be one of the greatest fighters of all time. But his real championship, that's measured in the children he's protected and the families he's empowered. And that's a legacy that no trophy or movie role could ever match.